Bojo Kanoya, a pegish imnoya yeg pane. We here at Gedognoendamin in Nipissing Nishnaabemwin believe peer review is an important process in the education process. However, due to lack of speaker accessibility, scheduling, and these lessons being produced by second language learners, we tend to make mistakes in how Nishnaabemwin is represented. We encourage you to think with a critical mind when watching our videos and question the validity of something said in the video that catches your attention. We are language learners and naturally don't know what we don't know. We don't discourage others from helping us out by educating us, and if you see a mistake you would like us to rectify, you can do so by contacting the email in the video description. We also ask for your patience in waiting for edits, because it is a long process to edit mistakes we share in our videos, and there is the possibility that it might not align with the speakers of Nipissing First Nation. Miigwech Bisinduyang, Wewe Nog Nawam Damuk.
On in Bojo Kanoia, Mr. McLeod Mondiamina, Bajinaka Queen Monim. I just want to let you guys know that links to the dictionary, PDFs to the worksheet, audio files are in links in the description of this video, as well as any other resources that'll help you out with this lesson will eventually be there as soon as I'm done making them. Aho, miigwech.
On in Bojo, Mr. McLeod Mondaya, Mr. McLeod here. And so we're covering our first lesson for this course here. So our first lesson is called Pluralizing Inanimate Nouns. So these are our pluralizing patterns for inanimate nouns in Nipissing Nishnaabemwin. So here we have the part indicated for the fill in the blankers to fill in for their note accommodations. Pause here to let them fill this in before we move on. All right, let's move on. So, what is morphology and nouns? Morphology is how we understand formation of words. Morphology includes the study of root words, suffixes, and prefixes. In this lesson, we'll focus on strictly suffixes and how they affect a variety of nouns in Nishnaabemwin Nipissing dialect. Nouns are either a person, place, thing, idea, or if you're a wild man from Dokies, quality. Here we have all the words indicated for your fill in the blanks. Pause here to let the students with note accommodations fill these in. All right, let's move on. And here we have all the points for the note takers to write down. Pause again here to let them write these down. All right, let's move on. Singular versus plural. And when you see this sign up here, this means write down all the points from this screen before moving on if you're doing note taking. Fill in the blankers will point out whatever you have to fill in your note accommodations later. Singular refers to just one of something. Plural refers to more than one of something. Fill in the blankers, fill in these words in your note accommodations. Pause here to let them fill these in before we move on. And pause here to let the note takers write down these 2 points before moving on. All right, let's progress. What are suffixes? Suffixes are a unit of language added at the end of a word that changes the original word's meaning. In English, to pluralize a noun, we usually add the letter S at the end of a singular noun. For example, dog is a single canine animal, but if add the plural suffix S, we end up with dogs. This changes the meaning from a single canine animal to more than one canine animal. Here we have the words for the fill in the blankers to write in their note accommodations. Please pause it here until you have these written down. And here's what the note takers should be writing down in their notes. Pause the video here and allow them to write this down as well. All right, let's move on. Noun, genders, and language. Some language classify their nouns into gender categories. For the purpose in this lesson, gender does not refer to the sex of a noun, but a system to categorize nouns. French uses a masculine and feminine system to classify their nouns. Nishnaabemwin uses animate and inanimate to classify their nouns. Here are the words for the fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Pause the video here and allow them to fill these in before moving on. And here are what the note takers should write down. Pause the video here and let them write this down before moving on. Okay, let's move on. Animacy versus inanimacy. For Nishnaabemwin language learning, I find it easier not to attach any meaning to the terms animate and inanimate. Just think of them as category A and category 1. Neither supersedes the other, and neither is alive nor dead. In this lesson, we will be learning about Nishnaabemwin nouns that are categorized as inanimate. Here are the words for the fill in the blankers to include their note accommodations. Pause the video here to give them time to write these down. And here's what's indicated for the note takers to write down. Pause the video here to let them write this down. All right, let's move on. So Nishnaabemwin nouns part 1. And so we have all the Ojibwe underlined here. Everybody should be writing these down. These are going to be our unit Ojibwe words for this course, and this is the first half. So pause the video here and allow students time to write these down in their notes. All right, let's get to translating these. Each one of these pictures represents one of the Ojibwe words on screen. Let's translate them. The first word is shquandem. Shquandem. Shquandem means door. The next word we have is wasech gun. Wasech gun. Wasech gun means window. The next word we have is waskaneng gun. Waskaneng gun. Waskaneng gun. Waskaneng gun means light, as in light bulb, not something that weighs light. The next word we have is mzinateschigun. 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 This word means TV or television. And the last word we have is ninj. Ninj. This word means hand. Let's pause the video here and give the students time to write the English translations for the Ojibwe in their notes before moving on. All right, let's move on. Here are the second set of words for our course here. These are some more inanimate nouns. Please pause the video here and allow students time to write these words in their notes before moving on. All right, let's get to translating these words. So again, all these pictures in this slide represent the Ojibwe words on screen. Our first word here is mkuk. Mkuk. Mkuk means box. The next word we have is pquaquad. Pequawquod. Pequawquod means ball. The next word, mzinigan. Mzinigan. Mzinigan means book. Mzinigan can also mean paper, as a single piece of paper. The next word we have is mdweweschigan. Mdweweschigan. Mdweweschigan means phone. And the last word here we have is despawagan. Despawagan. Despawagan means chair. Please give the students time to write down the English translations for their Ojibwe words in their notes before we move on. All right, let's move on. Pluralizing inanimate nouns in Nipissing Nishnaabemwin. Just like S in English, Nishnaabemwin generally uses an "an" suffix to pluralize their inanimate nouns. There are exceptions to this rule, and I will do my best to cover as many as I can. In Ojibwe, some nouns have what I like to call a suffix connector that changes the sound of suffixes when we add them to nouns. Also, syncopation affects how we pronounce words. Here are the words for the fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Pause here to give them a chance to fill their note accommodations in. And pause here to let the note takers write down the points indicated for them to write down in their notes. All right, let's move on. Suffix connectors. And notice we have the sign up, meaning that the note taker should write down all the points on screen before moving on to the next slide. Some of our nouns in Ojibwe have a suffix connector. Suffix connectors only affect the first suffix attached to the noun. In Ojibwe, do not pronounce the suffix connector unless it has a suffix to connect to, hence why it's called a suffix connector. Here are all the words for the fill in the blankers to fill in their note accommodations. Pause here before moving on to the next slide. And pause here to allow the note takers to write down all the points in their notes before moving on. All right, let's move on. Suffix connectors. In our dictionary, I have documented suffix connectors for as many nouns as I could. They are in the following format. So we have the word pakwan for roof. So here we have the Ojibwe pakwan for roof. And then NI stands for noun inanimate. And then this is our translation roof. If the word has a noun suffix connector, it'll be indicated with a light green font with a black outline. Pakwan does not have one. The next word is Odana, which means town. As we can see here, it has a lowercase w suffix connector. The next word, Wagaquod, is our word for axe. It has a capital W suffix connector, which will be different from the lowercase w suffix connector. The next word we have is sin, which means rock. It has a full vowel form. There's a D-stressed A sound in front of the word, and its suffix connector is a Y sound at the end. We have the sign up, meaning that all the note takers should write this down before moving on. So Pakwan is our example word to model how to pluralize an inanimate noun that ends in a consonant sound without a suffix connector. Odana is our example that has a lowercase w suffix connector when we add the plural suffix an. Our word axe, Wogakwood, has a capital W suffix connector to show you what happens when we add the plural suffix an. And then our word sin has a y suffix connector to show you what happens when we add the plural suffix an to that. So when we add the plural suffix to a word without a suffix connector, we can just attach it like so. Pakwanan is our word for roofs. For our words with lowercase w suffix connectors, we're going to incorporate the w into our word like so. So Odana is our word for town, but Odan1 is our word for towns, plural. Now I'm going to show you what happens with the capital W suffix connectors when we add an. So when we add an to the capital W, they morph together to form a double O sound. So Wogakwad, 1x, Wogakwadon, axes. Now we're going to show you what happens when you add the plural suffix to a y suffix connector. So when you add the plural suffix an to a y suffix connector, the y and the a morph together to form a double I sound. So sin for rock, sinin for rocks, plural. Here we have the words underlined for the fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Give them time to write these down and have the note takers write down everything on screen in their notes. Pause here to allow them time to write this down. All right, let's move on. Syncopation. Generally referred to as vowel dropping or deletion. Syncopation in this class will refer to the stressing and de-stressing of short vowel sounds, single A, single I, and single O. Syncopation is a common characteristic among several Eastern Nishnaabemwin dialects. Here are the words for the fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Pause the video here to allow them time to fill it in. Have the note takers write down the indicated part here in their notes before moving on. Pause the video here. All right, let's move on. Think of vowel dropping like when Thanos in Avengers Infinity War snapped his fingers and got rid of people in the MCU. In syncopation, we also bring back vowel sounds older speakers used to keep, like when Hulk snapped his fingers to bring people back in Avengers Endgame. So Nishnaabemwin Nouns Part 1, Suffix Connectors. So our example, Shkwandem, doesn't have a suffix connector, so it'll be pluralized like Pakwan. Wasechkan also does not have a suffix connector. Same with Waskanenjkan. Mzinateschigan also doesn't have a suffix connector. Ninj has a Y suffix connector, so it's going to be pluralized like our example, sin, rock. Here are the parts indicated for the fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Pause the video here and allow them to write this down before moving on. All right, let's move on. So the plural of Shkwandam is Shkwandaman, doors. The plural of Wasechkan is Wasechganan, windows. The plural for Waskanenjkan is Waskanenjganan. The plural for Mzinateschigan is Mzinateschignan. Take note that we had some funky stuff going on here. We'll explain that later in the lesson. And lastly, ninj is going to be pluralized like our example, sin. So the plural of ninj is ninjin. hands. Here are the words that the fill-in-the-blankers should include in their note accommodations, and note takers should also write these down. So please pause the video for everyone to write these down before moving on. All right, let's move on. How we de-stress sounds with our second last consonant rule. So we have the sign up here for note takers to write everything down. So if you'll remember in our word mzinateschigan, when we added a plural suffix, it changed it from mzinateschigan to mzinateschignun. We dropped a sound because of our second last consonant rule. The second last consonant rule. Before adding a suffix that starts with a vowel, for example, our plural suffix un, in, count to the second last consonant in your initial word. Those are our nouns. If the second last consonant has both a vowel sound before it and a short vowel sound, single A, single I, or single O after it, de-stress the short vowel sound. If there is a consonant sound before the second last consonant, we can't distress the following short vowel sound. If instead of a short vowel sound after the second last consonant, we have a long vowel, we also do not de-stress it because it is a long vowel. Here are the words indicated for the fill-in-the-blankers to include in their note accommodations. Pause the video here and allow them time to write this down. Here are the words indicated for the fill-in-the-blankers to include in their note accommodations. Since the note takers are expected to write everything, pause the video here and allow everyone to fill in everything for their notes. Iskoya, ombe. All right, let's go. How our second last consonant rule affects adding suffixes. So we have the word mzinateschigan from earlier. We are going to count to the second last consonant sound. The last consonant is an N sound. The second last is a G sound. We look on either side of the G for the vowel sounds. We have a vowel sound in front of it and a short vowel after it. This is where we de-stress the short vowel sound before adding our plural suffix, before adding a suffix that starts with a vowel sound. This is how we go from mzinateschigan to mzinateschignun. This is a rule you should apply to any of our nouns before adding the plural suffix. Nishnaabemwin nouns part 2, suffix connectors. So our word mkuk has a capital W suffix connector. It'll be pluralized like our example, wagakwad from earlier. Pquaquad also has a capital W suffix connector, so it'll be pluralized like wagakwad from earlier. Mzinigan doesn't have a suffix connector, so it'll be pluralized like pakwan from earlier. Same with mdweweschigan, no suffix connector. Despoagan also does not have a suffix connector, so it'll be pluralized like pakwan earlier. Here are the parts indicated for the fill-in-the-blankers to include their note accommodations. Give them time to write these down before moving on. All right, let's move on. So just like before, we're going to count to the second last consonant for each noun, and then examine if there's a vowel sound before it and a short vowel after it, and de-stress it as necessary before adding our plural suffixes. So K is the last vowel sound. K is the second last. That M sound is not a vowel sound. So then we're not going to drop anything or de-stress anything. So kakon for boxes is pluralized like ugakwadon, axes. Next one, pquaquad. D is the last consonant sound. W is the second last. That K is not a vowel sound. So we're not going to drop anything because it breaks our second last consonant rule. Pequaquadone is our word for balls. So it's pluralized like wogaqued as well. Wogaquadone for axes. Next word, nzinigan for book or paper. N is the last consonant sound. G is the second last. We have a vowel sound in front of it and a short vowel after. So we're going to de-stress the short vowel sound. So we're going to de-stress this short vowel sound and then add the plural suffix an. Nzinig nun for books or papers. Next one, ndwes chigun for phone. N is the last consonant sound. G is the second last. We have a vowel sound in front of it. So it's time to de-stress that A sound before adding our plural suffix. So ndwes chigun is singular. Ndwes chig nun is plural. And the last one here, despawagun for chair. N is the last consonant sound. G is the second last. Double A is a vowel sound. And we have a short vowel after it. So time to drop that A or de-stress that A. Despawagun is singular. Despawagnon is plural for chairs. Please pause the video here and give everyone a chance to write these down in their notes before moving on to the next slide. All right, let's move on. Noun suffix order. And we have the sign up, meaning the note takers should write down everything from this slide before moving on. Ojibwe has a number of suffixes that are attachable to nouns in a certain order. Our nouns have 6 different suffixes that appear in a specific order. In noun suffix order, plural suffixes appear as the 4th suffix in our noun suffix order, in place of the 4th person suffix and velar consonant suffix. Our noun suffix connectors only affect the first suffix that connects to the noun. So if we have 1, 2, or 3 suffixes in between our noun and the plural suffix, we will just use an. Here are all the words that the fill in the blankers should include in their note accommodations before moving on. Please pause the video here and allow everyone time to write everything they need down from this slide. All right, let's move on. Lesson summary. Just like in English, Nishnaabemwin pluralizes their nouns with the suffix an. Sometimes nouns in Nishnaabemwin have suffix connectors that affect the sound of the first suffix added to it. Lowercase w suffix connectors, when we add the an, will pronounce all the sounds. 1, W-A-N. Capital W's and the plural an suffix will morph together to form the own suffix, O-O-N. Y suffix connectors, when they add the an suffix, will produce an in suffix, I-I-N. Before adding any suffix, we have to check our second last consonant rule to de-stress any necessary short vowel sounds. When attaching multiple suffixes to our nouns, our plural suffix appears as the 4th suffix in our order, in place of 4th person suffix and velar consonant suffix. Misaya nongum, that's it for today. If you have any additional questions about the work and assignments for this lesson, please check the video I made here modeling how to answer each question in the worksheet. Check out this playlist for a visual medium of our audio files that comes with hand gestures to help you better understand how best to write and format your assignment. Again, we have links to the lesson PowerPoint, worksheet, audio files, additional resources, and a contact email you can submit questions to or help point out any inaccuracies you notice in our videos in the description of this video. Chimigwechmina.